Welcome to Bible fourth grade. Today we are going to begin a new unit of study. We have just completed the book of Judges, and the next book in line is Ruth. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. Ruth is a story that takes place during the time of the Judges. It begins with a woman by the name of Naomi and her husband and two sons who leave Israel because of a famine. Remember, a famine is a lack of food. There must have been some sort of weather conditions or a very bad year of crops that resulted in there being no food in the land. People were hungry, people were starving. There just wasn't enough food in Israel. And so Naomi and her husband and sons leave Israel and they move to the foreign country of Moab. While in Moab, Naomi's husband and sons die. Ruth happens to be one of Naomi's daughters in law, one of the girls that had married one of Naomi's sons. So let's begin with Ruth chapter 1 to get the setting of the story. There will be two more lessons in this unit that we will cover, but today we are going to begin with lesson 1, getting the lay of the land and figuring out who Naomi and Ruth are and the setting of the story. Let's read right from Scripture, Ruth chapter 1, verses 1 through 18. I want you to be listening for why Naomi's family moved. I think I've already talked about that. What happened to Naomi's husband and her sons. Who is this Ruth and what did she want to do with Naomi? Listen as I read. Follow along. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and two sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech, his wife's name Naomi, and the names of his two sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Epaphrathites from Bethlehem, Judah, and they went to Moab and lived there. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her two sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth. After they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and Naomi was left without her two sons and her husband. When she heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing for them back in Israel, Naomi and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her two daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. Then Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show kindness to you as you have shown to your dead and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband." All right, so here is the setting. Naomi and her husband Elimelech and their two sons leave Israel because of the famine. They go to the foreign country of Moab. While there, the two sons, Mahlon and Chilion, marry women from Moab, foreign women from Moab, not followers of the one true God. After some time, Naomi's husband, Elimelech, dies, as do her two sons. They also die. After some time, Naomi hears that God has restored Israel and brought food back to the land. There is no longer a famine. And so she decides that she is going to go back to her home, back to Israel. After she gets packed up, and while she is headed out of town, so to say, she tells her two daughters in law, "You're from here in Moab. You should go home to your own families." Here we are at the top of the column. Then she kissed them, and they wept aloud and said to her, "We will go back with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Go ahead, return home, my daughters. I'm too old to have another husband, and I will not have any more sons. And even if I did, you can't wait for them to grow up to be your husbands. So you need to just go back. It is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has gone out against me." Meaning, Naomi says and thinks, "Oh, you girls are still young enough. You go back to your mother's homes, back to your family, and you'll find other husbands. But me, here I am. I'm old. I had left my home to begin with. You know, it it's not going to be good for me. I'm not going to be able to find another husband. Things are worse for me than you. So just you go back to your family, and I'll just go back to my homeland." At this, they wept again. Then Orpah kissed her mother in law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. "Look," said Naomi, "your sister in law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her." But Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me." When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. All right, so first chapter tells us about Naomi and her misfortune of her husband and sons dying. She decides to go back to her homeland, to the land of Israel, and one of her daughters in law, Ruth, decides to go back with her. And Ruth states at the end of the chapter, towards the end of the chapter, that she is going with Naomi no matter what. She will not leave Naomi by herself. She wants to go and help and take care of her. So let's review. Why did Naomi's family move? Remember, they moved to Moab, to the foreign country, because of a famine in Israel. What happened to Naomi's husband and sons? They died. What did Ruth want to do with Naomi? Ruth wanted to go with Naomi. Ruth wanted to leave her country and go to Naomi's country to take care of her. Why do you think Ruth wanted to go with Naomi? Don't you think that says something about Ruth's character? She had a strong character. She was loyal, wasn't she? She loved her mother-in-law. She wanted to make sure that her mother-in-law was taken care of. And Ruth was willing to leave her country and go to what would be a foreign country for her to be sure that her mother-in-law was taken care of. Remember, boys and girls, back in those days, women could not own property. They did not have jobs outside of the home. The husbands, their families had to take care of the women. And so now that Naomi did not have a husband nor sons to take care of her, she felt it would be best to go back to her homeland, and hopefully a relative there would be able to help her and take care of her in her old age. All right, also included in this lesson is a little challenge activity that you can work on, and then just a fun little newspaper type article, the Bible Times Herald. You might want to read that, see if you can answer the questions, and look at the crossword puzzle. Boys and girls, that is lesson 1 from the book of Ruth. Until next time, bye bye.